there are some crazy things happening
Yeah.
in the public school system. And I realize a lot of people listening to this, you don't live in a district with great public school options. Our job is not to create an illusion of reality. Our job is to prepare our kids for reality. And our job is to prepare our kids to navigate the world that they are called to serve. And so I would just tell parents, like, when it comes to training your kids, whether they're going to school for the majority of the day or they're at home, like, there is that call to disciple them strategically in those moments that you share with them. And a part of discipling them is trusting them. It's like sending them out when God tells you to send them out. Like, I think of Jesus sending out the 70 or sending out the 12 before he had even died, and before the gospel message in its entirety was clear to them. They were going out and they were proclaiming the good news. And I know that that's an interesting example here, but my point is we have to train them throughout their journey where they have some space for that risk and reward. And that's terrifying as a parent.
And we have to trust that God is training them.
Yeah.
Through whatever experiences, whatever types of schooling. There's this ideal that we will choose a school and our kids will be in it from kindergarten through 12th grade, and they'll make these rich, beautiful friendships and, graduate with honors and everything will be perfect. Like you said, it's not our job to just make their life as easy and safe and comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
It is our job to regularly surrender to the path that God has for each of our kids in each of the different seasons. So you've alluded a lot to Elizabeth, who is our third, and she is uniquely bonded to me. And we were in our second year of homeschooling with a lot of the basics, specifically reading, finding it extremely challenging and very different than what we had experienced with Asher and Sophia. And it was her co-op teacher who said, hey, I'm not saying that this is what it is, but I just want you to know that there are resources available to homeschool parents to be tested for dyslexia in their school district. You just have to call whatever elementary school like you're zoned for, or whatever school district you're zoned for, let them know that you would like that. And then by accordance with Tennessee state law, at least, you can get that testing done. And initially, I was very defensive, being the primary educator at that time, of there being a lack. And I
my approach was always like, do more.
Yeah.
Like, if you were reading more,
yes.
Work harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I felt an overwhelming sense of failure. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to call, not the school district right away. I just called a dyslexia tutor that was specific for homeschool kids. And through conversation with her, it was so enlightening, so helpful, recognizing, one, that Elizabeth already knew she was different. By giving her language and resourcing, I was not going to be condemning her.
Yeah.
Two, it was probably my own insecurities that was keeping me from exploring the different resources that my child needed that I did not possess to provide her with.
Yeah.
And so we went down this journey of, and I thought we would homeschool for the foreseeable future. We had found a co-op that was working great. But then through research, through educating ourselves around what this meant, what this looked like, what it would look like long-term for Elizabeth, we realized the school that was 3 minutes down the road from where we live had incredible resources available. And it's a public school. Mm-hmm. Had incredible resources available specifically 4 children in 3rd grade, which was the year she was going into, because it's a benchmark year for the state of Tennessee, where if their reading is at a certain level, they just throw everything they've got at it to get kids above that level, or they hold them back. And that district, specific for dyslexia, had incredible resources available. And it really is just the sweetness of God that it took me getting over my perception of public school, my ideas around, the school system, and just the general language, the general narrative that's being used in America right now about what they're trying to sneak into our school systems, and how, as Christians, the right thing to do is pull your kids out of that, either putting them in Christian private school or homeschooling. And that simply wasn't the case for our specific district, for this specific school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very humbling to recognize, oh, wow, this is provision. Like, this is God providing us with what Elizabeth needs right here, right now.
Yeah.
And we are 1 year into that decision, and she is flourishing. I mean, 100%.
Yeah, we had a meeting with like 8 people around the table at our school, and multiple adults were crying, talking about her and what she has meant to them, and what a gift she is to the school, and how she sees people in a way that's extraordinary for someone who's 9, and she was 9 at the time, and just talking about what an impact she's had on their lives and stuff. And I want to go back to what you said about schools. I mean, like there are some crazy things happening in the public school system. And I realize a lot of people listening to this, you don't live in a district with great public school options. So I don't want to belittle that, but I also want to say, like, our job is not to create an illusion of reality. Our job is to prepare our kids for reality. And our job is to prepare our kids to navigate the world that they are called to serve, that they are called to go into, that they are called to be lights to. And more and more, I feel like, and this is anecdotal, like this is my own experience talking to people get out of this sheltered world, Christian experience, and they get into higher education, they get into a professional career, and they're like, yeah, no, these aren't congruent. And it's because there's this stark difference. There's this disconnect. They haven't been trained how to navigate some of the tension that comes with the fact that schools are teaching the things that they are teaching right now in public schools, right? Whether that's about gender and sexuality or whatever it may be, like that's the world that they're having to navigate. That's the world that they're having to figure out what it means to be faithful to Jesus, what it means to be faithful to truth, what it means to be faithful to family, like those things. And those are difficult questions.
And it requires an involvement from us as parents to be volunteering in the classroom, to be supporting the teachers who we do know are God-fearing and ultimately do have the conviction as educators. Like, there are so many incredible Christian educators in the public school system.
Yeah.
And they need Christian parents to come alongside them, because it is the voice of the parents that's going to be listened to in those, different school zone meetings.
Yeah.
Everything that's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, and there are some places where you might make the decision, no, hey, I have to pursue an alternate course, whether that's a scholarship or that's a private school or that's homeschool, depending on what your situation is. Like, I get that. That's real. And I think what we're getting at here is that there is a path forward through all of these routes. Like, there is a path forward. It's being sensitive to the Spirit and what God is asking you to say yes to for each one of the children. And for us, like, that's been something we've had to sit with and pray through. We actually thought 2 of our older kids were going to go to one school. We got denied.
Yeah.
We applied to this school. It was the most affordable private school in our area. for our older two kids, and we made it all the way through the interview process, and they were like, yeah, we love, this is great. And I don't know what happened, but at the very end, it was like, actually, we don't have spots for them. And we're like, oh, wow. And so
They might have listened to this podcast
yeah,
and
they're
been
like,
like,
I don't know about
oh,
this.
they're not our people.
So, and so we were like, all right, God, we're praying through these different options. And there were a couple other ones. And we ended up applying for a special program at our local high school, public high school for Asher that he got accepted to. And it's been amazing to see like how God has confirmed that direction as the right direction again and again and again. And for what Asher wants to pursue after high school, it makes sense for him to go that route.
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to navigate some of those things in a public high school, 1,700 kid high school, big high school, that he's going to face when he goes to university, and things that he's going to be able to navigate in the safety of our home, because we do have the type of relationship with him where there is that trust. And we feel like as part of his discipleship journey, like is him actually going into a space like this and navigating the dissonance, navigating the disconnect, navigating the different values in a way where he's going to be able to process that with us at home.
Yeah.
And we're aware of that. Like we're going into this eyes wide open. We're aware like there are going to be unique challenges that he's going to have to face, and we're going to have to face as a family because of this decision that we're making. But we're also trusting that there is a grace and there's a provision for us as a family as we go down this road.
Yeah. And there is a humility that if this is not the right decision long term, we do both hold conviction that it is the right decision right now.
Yes.
And Asher, we invited Asher
To pray
into
about
this
this.
decision
Yep.
December of last year. We knew that his homeschool time was coming to a close because he is wired, being a 14-year-old boy, he needs a lot of structure.
He needs structure, yeah. He needs to be challenged.
Yes, a lot of structure, a lot of challenge. And like Addison said before, I have had so many opportunities the last 3 years to just humble myself and recognize this is who I am and this is my capacity for growth. And this, while if I fully applied myself, maybe I could be it, but it is not. It's not who I am. And thank God that it does not rest on my shoulders alone to be everything for every single one of my kids. There are other people who are meant to be a part of this story. There are teachers, there are coaches, there are pastors, there are fellow parents who are meant to impart to my children things that I don't have.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That is the design. We were never meant to be everything for our kids.
I think that's, Julie, what you just said. We're never meant to be everything for our kids. I think that's a belief that confuses this decision or clouds this decision quite possibly more than anything else.
For sure.
And so taking that step back and be like, God, what route has the people that you want to speak into my kids' life? Like, where are they at? And I love what you shared about limitations, coming to terms with our limitations, our weaknesses. That's not saying we won't grow. Like I love Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, where she talks about a fixed mentality versus a growth mentality, and how it's unhealthy to have a fixed mentality. But when she's talking about growth mentality, she's talking about how like, hey, if your natural skills in an area lean toward, or if you're trying to grow in an area where you have natural ability, like you're going to grow faster.
Yeah.
And there's this idea of like, oh, we have to shore up all of our weaknesses. And yes, your weaknesses can't be a liability, but you get a lot more bang for your buck if you invest in your strengths, right? And so I think that's something I've seen from you as a mom. We're like, hey, I'm really going to invest in the things that I'm good at as a mom, where I can contribute to this journey of development, their journey of becoming disciples, like learning what it is to follow Jesus in a real world, not just in the safety of our home, but in their world, amongst their friends, within sports programs, whatever it is. Like you're like, hey, these are the things that I do really well. And these are the things that I need to look to is this program. That's Lizzie's gone from the 4th percentile to like the 60th percentile in 1 year in reading. And she has really committed herself to the process. Like you can see she's confident, she's excited. This was a big win for her. Like third grade was a massive win for Lizzie. And she came out of third grade excited. She told me the other day, she's like, Dad, I'm excited for school to start. Like that was not Lizzie. Lizzie was not the kid who was excited for school to start.
Yeah.
And I know for you, like it was like, man, like, well, why couldn't I have been that? But the truth is you were that for Lizzie in other ways that actually created a tenacity in her to go through the experience that she went through in third grade, than to receive that educational component that was unique to her because of her dyslexia. And now she has emerged as a confident young lady who's excelling in school.
Yeah. And she's even saying she wants to be a teacher. Like,
y'all, like that's so. And we were even nervous about the fact, like she had a male teacher this year, and she had never had a male teacher. I remember you and I praying through that, and we were like, how do we feel about this? She's always had female teachers, and Lizzie's always been a bit leery of men. She's been a lot more comfortable with women, and so we were like, are we setting her up to fail? And we prayed through that, and we're like, no, like this is her teacher. And the way she talks about him and how grateful she is for that experience. It's just like, God, only you could have done this.
Yeah. And it required so much trust, but we are seeing the fruit of it.
Yeah.
And I believe that situation has prepared us for Asher going into a public high school.
Yeah.
And the amount of trust that requires, knowing that he's going to be exposed to things that he's never been exposed to. He's in a highly academic track, so even the vantage point of the education that's going to be placed in front of him largely is going to lack a clear emphasis of God.
Yeah.
And he is going to have to navigate that. We are going to be navigating that with him as a freshman in high school in a very different way than we would have proximity to navigate it with him as a freshman in college.
Yeah. And I did all the experiences. I did public school, I did charter school, I did Christian school. And I would say this, and this isn't a knock against all Christian schools, but going to Christian school, that was one of the hardest places to follow Jesus. Because there was this rampant hypocrisy. People knew the right things to say. They knew what they were supposed to be doing. So there was this projection of being a certain person who does certain things. But there was a lot of, I'm projecting one thing, but I'm living a completely different life.
And almost a mockery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like very flippant toward these values that the school was built on. So there are, again, like there are going to be challenges. And again, I'm not saying that if you're doing private school, I'm not saying private Christian school, I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I think we have to be aware as parents, like, there isn't a quote unquote right track. We don't get to check a box and check out. We have to be sensitive to what the Spirit of God is doing in us as parents and how we're changing, how we're forming, and the needs that our kids have. And what it looks like for them, and the community that we're in, what it looks like for them to thrive within the school experience.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I say miss the days, but I never lived in these days. As a human, I miss the days when humanity just lived village life. There was one school, and that was the school that everybody went to for however long it made sense for that individual to go, depending on what the rest of their life was going to look like. University was very much reserved for those who were academic. You could learn trades if this is available. I don't know if we have any Amish listeners.
Yeah, and there is an appeal. The simplicity offers an appeal. Progress has brought us a different direction, and there are arguments against, like, is progress really progress? Like, is it really good for us? Are we moving in the right direction, or are we just moving in the direction of more frantic action? and lack of health, lack of human flourishing. And those are tensions that we have to, and we get to manage as parents as we're setting up the next generation to make these decisions.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think to wrap this up, wherever you're at, whatever ages your kids are, it is a season by season. Even if you'd make the same choice, you still have to take into consideration how your kid is doing. It could be different than the last year. Like, it's so much intentionality.
Yeah.
And there's just no formula.
There's no formula. And I think that keeps us from believing, oh, if I just did this other solution, everything would work itself out.
There's no formula, and everything has gaps.
It does.
Every single one of these possibilities, private school, public school, homeschooling, charter school, all of them have gaps. So choose your gaps.
It's good. I love that. Choose your gaps.
We are still going to be homeschooling our daughter through 8th grade this year. Our younger 2 kids will be in public school. And I will say it has been a beautiful, wonderful environment for Elizabeth, our son Augustus, who's going into 2nd grade. It hasn't been an ideal fit. He's the youngest, and he is a true youngest.
He's so cheeky.
Like, finds a lot of creative ways of getting out of doing anything for himself. And he's heavily adored by the other 5 members of his family.
Yeah.
So going to school was important for his personal growth. Like, he had to carry his own backpack. Just those, that was good for him.
Yeah.
For his personality, the way his brain works, he's very creative. There are still question marks for me, just to be completely honest and forthright. There's still question marks for me about this being right for him long term. And so, I mean, we have 4 kids, 4 very different kids, and we're navigating it year by year.
Yeah.
And really just praying and having tons of conversation between Addison and I about what is right, the pros and cons. And then we go and we experience these schools, and then we continue to pray. And our prayer is, God, open the doors and close the doors.
And I would say that's a key. Like what you said about going, is it at some point you have to put your head down and you have to go. And so I think it's figuring out what are the right rhythms for looking up and questioning and having those conversations. But if you're living in a perpetual state of like, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? Like, that's exhausting.
It is.
But figuring out a rhythm that makes sense for you as a couple or you individually to be like, okay, hey, I'm evaluating this decision.
Would you pray over everyone as
Absolutely.
we close out this portion of schools?
And I want to say this before we close too. We've shared some other things too. Like we have a screens phone contract that we developed, and some prayers and different things like that. And so go back, listen to the other episodes. We have a link where you can sign up and receive some of these different things. And please be sure to rate, review, comment. It helps us know where we should go with future episodes, because at the end of the day, we want to serve you all well. So, Father, I thank you that you teach us how to be good parents. I thank you that you are more invested in the success of our kids, in the flourishing of our kids than even we are. I thank you that we can trust you, that your Spirit leads us and guides us into all truth, that you reveal the deep things of our hearts and the hearts of our children. God, I ask that you would give wisdom to the parents right now who are navigating decisions, who feel like they're inadequate when it comes to making these decisions. Father, I pray that you connect them with the right people. I pray that you would give them the wisdom and the insight that they need, that you would drop that in their spirit. Father, I pray that you would connect the dots for them in ways that they haven't been able to connect those dots before. Father, I pray that you would surround them with a community, with friends, with family, that will be able to own this with them, to be able to pour into their kids and disciple them and develop them and position them to flourish as they transition into adulthood. God, we thank you for your presence. Your presence is what leads us and guides us. And I ask for a greater measure of your presence to be in the lives of everyone listening to this episode today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us again at Home with the Beveres, where we are so passionate about helping you create a legacy starting at home. If you haven't already, go right ahead and like and subscribe. And guys, as well, leave us a comment below, because whenever you leave a comment, it helps us curate content that can help so many other people. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time at Home with the Beveres.